Is it time to accept North Korea is a nuclear power? So, South Korea CNN. As a statement of intent, it was about as blunt as they get. North Korea has developed nuclear weapons and will give up. Will never give them up. And its leader Kim Jong un told the world last month the move was irreversible. He said the weapons represent the dignity, body, and absolute power of the state, and Pyongyang will continue to develop them as long as nuclear weapons exist on Earth. Kim may be no stranger to colorful language, but it is worth taking his vow, which he signed into law, seriously. Bear in mind that this is the dictator who cannot be voted out of power and who generally does what he said he will do. Bear in mind, too, that North Korea has staged a record number of missile launches this year, more than 20, claims that it is deploying tactical nuclear weapons to field the unit, something CNN cannot independently confirm, and is also believed to be ready for the seventh underground nuclear test. All this has prompted a growing number of experts to question whether now is the time to call a spade and accept that North Korea is in fact a nuclear state. Doing so would entail giving up once and for all the optimistic some might say delusional hope that Pyongyang's program is somehow incomplete or that it might yet be persuaded to give it up voluntarily. As Ankit Panda, a Stanton Senior Fellow in the Nuclear Policy Program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, put it, we simply have to treat North Korea as it is rather than as we would like to be, saying the unsayable. From the purely factual point of view, North Korea has nuclear weapons, and few who follow events there closely dispute that. The recent nuclear notebook column from the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists estimates that North Korea may have produced enough fis- fissile, fissile mortar, mortar to build between 45 and 55 nuclear weapons. What's more, the recent missile tests suggest it has a number of methods of delivering those weapons. Kim Jong un inspect the missile test as unclosed location in North Korea in a paragraph Pyongyang released on October 10, 2022. Publicly acknowledging this reality is, however, fraught with peril for countries such as the United States. One of the most compelling reasons for Washington not to do so is its fears of sparking a nuclear arms race in Asia. South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan are just a few of the neighbors that would likely want to match Pyongyang's status. But some experts say that refusing to acknowledge North Korea's nuclear pro- prowess in the face of increasingly obvious evidence to the contrary does little to reassure these countries. Rather, the impression that allies have their heads in the sand may make them more nervous. Let's accept it. North Korea is a nuclear arms state, and North Korea has all necessary delivery systems, including pretty efficient ICBM intercontinental ballistic missiles, said Andrei Lankop, a professor at Kunmin University in Seoul and the preeminent academic authority on North Korea. The Israel solution. A better approach, some suggest, might be to treat North Korea's nuclear program in a similar way to Israel's, with a tacit acceptance That's the solution favored by Jeffrey Lewis, an adjunct professor at the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey. I think that the crucial step that US President Joe Biden needs to take is to make clear both to himself and to the US government that we are not going to get North Korea to disarm, and that is fundamentally accepting North Korea as the nuclear state. We do not necessarily need to legally recognize it, Lewis said. Both Israel and India offer examples of what the US could aspire to in dealing with North Korea, he added. North Korea held what it called tactical nuclear missile test personally guided by Kim Jong Un from September 25 to October 9th. Israel, widely believed to have started its nuclear program in the 1960s, has always claimed nuclear ambiguity while refusing to be a party to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, while India embraced the nuclear ambiguity for decades before abandoning that policy with its 1998 nuclear test. In both of those cases, the US knew those countries had a bomb, but the deal was if you don't talk about it, if you don't make an issue out of it, if you don't cause political problems, then we are not going to respond. I think that's the same place we want to get to with North Korea, Louis said. Denuclearization, like chasing a miracle, at present through at present though North Washington shows no signs of abandoning its approach of hoping to persuade Pyongyang to give up its nukes. Indeed, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris underlined it during a recent visit to the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. Our shared goal, the United States and the Republic of Korea, is the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, Harris said. That may be a world goal, but many experts see it as increasingly unrealistic. Nobody disagreed that denuclearization would be a very desirable outcome on the Korean Peninsula. It's simply not a tactable one, Panda said. One problem standing in the way of denuclearization is that Kim's likely biggest priority is assuring the survivor of his regime. And if he was paranoid enough already, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in which a nuclear power has attacked a non-nuclear power, will have served as the timely reinforcement of his belief that nuclear weapons are the only reliable guarantee of security, said Lankop from Kunmin University. A TV screen at the railway station in Seoul, South Korea shows the image of a North Korean missile launch on October 10, 2022. Trying to convince Kim otherwise seems the non-starter, as Pyongyang has made clear it will not even consider engaging with the US administration that wants to talk about denuclearization. If America wants to talk about denuclearization, North Korea is not going to talk, and if the Americans are not talking, North Korea will launch more and more missiles and better missiles, Lankop said. It's a simple choice. There is also the problem that if North Korea's increasingly concerned neighbors conclude Washington's approach is going nowhere, this might itself bring about the arms race the US is so keen to avoid. Chung Sung Chang, a senior researcher at the Sejong Institute, a Korean think tank, is among the growing number of conservative voices calling for South Korea to build its own nuclear weapons program to counter Pyongyang's effort, efforts to prevent North Korea developing nuclear weapons have ended in failure, he said. And even now, pursuing denuclearization is like chasing a miracle. Was Trump on the right track? Still, however remote the denuclearization dream seems, there are those who say the alternative of accepting North Korea's nuclear status, however softly, would be a mistake. We would be basically saying to Kim Jong Un afterward of this tug of war and rustling that you're just going to get with what we you are just going to get what you want. The bigger question then, of course, is where does that leave the entire region? Said Sue Kim, a former CIA officer who is now a researcher at U.S. think tank RAND Corporation. That leaves the one other option open to the Biden administration and its allies, though each one that may seem unlikely in the current climate. They could pursue a deal in which Pyongyang offers to freeze each armed development in return for sanctions relief. In other words, not a million miles away from the deal, Kim offered that US President Donald Trump at their summit in Hanoi, Vietnam in February 2019. This option has its backers. A freeze is a really solid way to start things out. It's very hard to get rid of weapons that exist, but what is possible is to prevent things from getting worse. It takes some of the pressure up and it opens up space for other kinds of negotiations, said Louis of the James Martin Center. However, the Trump era overtones might make this a non starter. Asked if he thought President Biden might consider this tactic, Louis smiled and said, I'm a professor, so I specialized in giving advice that no one is ever going to take. We don't talk anymore. But even if the Biden administration was so inclined, that ship may have sailed. The Kim of 2019 was far more willing to engage than the Kim of 2022. And that perhaps is the biggest problem at the heart of all the options on the table. They rely on some form of engagement with North Korea, something entirely lacking at present. Kim is now focused on his 5-year plan for military modernization announced in January 2021, and no offers of talks from the Biden administration or others have yet turned his head in the slightest. As Panda acknowledged, there is a set of cooperative options which would require the North Korea being willing to sit down at the table and talk about some of those things with us. I don't think that we are even close to sitting down with the North Koreans. And in fairness to Kim, the reticence reticence is not all down to Pyongyang. Big policy shift in the US would require the president backing, and I really see no evidence that Joe Biden really sees the North Korean issue as deserving of tremendous political capital, Panda said. He added what may experts believe and what even some US and South Korean lawmakers admit behind closed doors. We will be living with a nuclear armed North Korea probably for a few decades to come at least.